We're back again. Episode 5 of a Harlequins podcast, 2 words and 4 quarters. My name's Michael. As always, I'm joined with my cousin Will. Will, how are you, mate?
I'm really good, mate. I was watching BT Sport last weekend and I've taken some fashion tips from Lawrence Dallaglio and bought myself one of these flat cap feet, and I feel like I'm going to be wearing this on a night out from now on.
That is terrible. Anyway, we're still riding high off the back of the big win against Wasps a few days ago. Plenty to talk about this episode. Obviously, we've got a pretty big weekend of sport ahead of us. Six Nations starting, amongst other things. We had a chat last couple of days, and we sort of had this idea of, like we did in, I think it was episode 3, about picking an international marquee signing, and we could pick a Premiership player and an up and coming star. We're going to try and pick a member of each Six Nations squad to join Harlequins, and the basis of this is we're not just going to pick your easy targets. We're going to pick people that we think potentially that Quins need or Quins fit, or that sort of area. Those areas, and we're gonna see what we come up with. I've just picked a couple that I think I physically can't go without picking, regardless of who we've got in that position. But we've done a little bit of thinking, so we'll go through it squad by squad. So we'll start with England. Will, who have you got?
Yeah, I think the key point you mentioned there is who can we plug in that's going to improve our squad and fit around the best players that we already have. So I made a little shortlist for England, and I'll read it out to you.
There's going to be plenty of discussion here, plenty of debate, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of countries to get through, so I'll try not to dwell on it too much. But I've got Ollie Lawrence, because I think him and Marchant in the centres would provide an interesting combination and play the way we want to play. I've got Jamie George. I think he would shore up our front row, and he's a good ball handling hooker as well. And he's got a decent punt on him as well. I think he'd fit the way we play. And I've got Ben Earl as that physical, imposing back rower that just goes around nailing people. So that's my 3-man shortlist. And the winner, who's making my Quins team, is the hooker, Jamie George.
Yeah, I picked Jamie George as well. I like the fact you've touched on his kicking game there. A little piece of my history with England. I was in Melbourne for the second test, I think it was. First ever test match in Melbourne, 2016. It was me and my 3 mates, and I think we were the only English people in the ground.
Set up fast, didn't he?
We did, yeah. I remember messaging you, actually. This is actually, we're going to go off topic here. This is quite funny. We were about the only 3 or 4 people in the ground, English-wise, and the guy on the England Rugby Snapchat was going around the grounds, and I remember you were following it, and you took a screenshot and texted me it. And no, that was quality. Big win, and Jamie George's little grubber under the sticks put Farrell in for the win. But no, I like the sort of picks you've had there. I would pick Jamie George as a hooker. Earl, I've got some debate about, because personally, if I think you're picking Ben Earl, realistically, I think you're picking Tom Curry.
Yeah, that's fair. This is why I ended up on Jamie George.
Yeah, I agree. Should we go Wales?
Yeah, let's do Wales. Interesting you went for Louis Rees-Zammit. I also went for a winger. Before I say his name, notable mention for Justin Tipperick at 7.
What a player.
Will Evans was obviously awesome last weekend, but I mean, Justin Tipperick, British and Irish Lion, next level.
Different skill set, isn't he?
I actually only had 2 Welsh names, and the other one was Josh Adams. I just think he's a solid winger. He's tenacious, physical, but also electric.
Yeah, I struggled a little bit with Wales. I was sort of going across their squad, and I struggled to avoid the likes of North or Alan Wynne-Jones or people like that. And I stuck with my pick of our up and coming Premiership stars. Well, I think Louis Rees-Zammit's a pretty scary prospect in their back 3.
Scotland was actually my trickiest one.
Yeah, I struggled here as well.
I think Scotland will be a dark horse this year. And I think Eddie Jones is right there. I think they'll probably be our toughest game. I had Ali Price written down, but I don't think he dislodges DC from our starting 15. I had Jamie Ritchie, who's kind of that, again, that I'm going to use that word, tenacious back rower, who's very physical. But I couldn't look past Stuart Hogg at 15.
Yeah, I went with Ritchie. I think he's probably the favourite to start in the back row against, well, if there's a Lions tour. I think he's probably... I think he's maybe favourite to start in that position. I think Hogg is just different gear, but my after watching Lewis Liner on the weekend and my deep personal love of Mike Brown, I couldn't pick a fullback, unfortunately. I went with Jamie Ritchie. This one I think we were fairly unanimous on when we were talking about it during the week in the Ireland player we've got. Who did you pick?
Yeah, James Ryan. Couldn't look past him.
No, I mean, again, some of the line out work that was done by Big Steph and Simo on the weekend was pretty top draw. But James Ryan is a serious player.
He's a shoe-in, isn't he? I think a notable mention there to Bundy Aki. He'd be a great choice at 12, particularly between Marcus and Marchant. So he gets notable mention. But no,
I like Stockdale as well on the wing. I like Stockdale.
Yeah, but I don't think he gets... Well, he's probably a better player than some of the players we've got, but I wouldn't sign him to dislodge any of our current squad. So
I agree. And then Italy, we've been chatting about this a little bit this week, and we haven't actually revealed our picks to each other yet. But this is an area we had great debate on.
Relatively straightforward because there's not a huge pool of players to choose from that are sort of world beaters, if you can even classify them as that. But I went for Seb Negri, who's actually at Benetton at the minute, so he can say hello to Gustard for us. But he's a 26-year-old back row, very physical. I've gone for a few back rows here, haven't I? But yeah,
we're back row heavy. I went with a similar sort of theme. No digger at leaving Guzzi, but I went for another Benetton player in Tommaso Allen. He's versatile across the backs, plays in the centre, plays in the wing. 60 caps as well under to his name as well, which is no mean feat in Italian rugby. But yeah, I think when Guzzi lands in Italy, he can just talk us up a little bit and get him over. I think that'd be quite nice.
I don't think that's going to be happening, is it?
I would have thought so, maybe not. But we'll see. And then France. So this is another one that's been tricky because they've got they're close favourites for the tournament. Obviously, they performed pretty well in the autumn series, and Sean Edwards has transformed their defence. No end in the last sort of year or so that he's been there. Who have you gone for?
It was a 2-horse race for me. It was between Gregory Aldrit, who was awesome at last year's Six Nations. I can't remember if he got played the tournament actually. He's number 8, so it would shore up our back row with sort of a wiser head. But the man I went for was Antoine Dupont, who's next level, world class. He's probably the best 9 in the world. So, yeah, I'd have him in.
I think your French accent needs work, mate. But no,
Antoine Dupont.
Antoine Dupont. I'm not sure that's exact. I'll ask my French teachers at work on the exact pronunciation. I went with a guy who I physically can't leave out. Virimi Vakatawa. He's a freak. He's a monster.
What position are you playing him?
Good call. I'd tell him where to play wherever he wants. I'm certainly not going to say no to him. He can play wherever he feels like. But yeah, I mean, potentially if Marchant's away with England, potentially, obviously that probably means he's away with France at the same time. But probably play him at 13. I can't imagine there'd be too much sort of front football for any teams if you've got Vakatawa at 13 and Andre at 12. That'd be pretty mean to go past.
I guess that's part of the attraction with him, though, isn't it? If we're short of a 12 or a 13, he can do either of those jobs. He can even play on the wing. So I guess that's part of the attraction with him. And I guess that's why you'd also have Tommaso Allen, because we need a backup 10 for Marcus Smith as well. So, yeah,
absolutely.
Interesting names thrown around. We'll write down and note who we've selected, and please get involved and share your thoughts with us as well. And we'll have a bit of back and forth with it. So moving on to our next agenda point, it is the Super Bowl this weekend, which got us thinking what current members of the Harlequins squad could do a Christian Wade and make that transition over the pond to American football. So those of you watching us on YouTube will see I've got my Kansas City t-shirt on right now as Patrick Mahomes aims to take them to another Super Bowl this weekend. But my knowledge of NFL is very, very poor. So I think, Mike, you're going to have to lead this one.
What I've done over the last sort of week or so, I've created like a little nucleus of people close to me, sort of on a consultancy basis for our NFL chat. I've got a mate who's big into his NFL. I made him watch the Wasps game on Sunday with no pressure on him actually watching the rugby, but I said, mate, you've got to help me out and pick some players that you think could transfer over. We've got a few lookalikes that I think are quite good. We've got a couple of and then a couple of positional ones. And we can't obviously go without mentioning Paul Liziki. He's played at fullback in the NFL already for Chicago. Those of you that are struggling a little bit on your NFL knowledge, a fullback's a bit like a sort of running back, but much bigger, much heavier. They do a lot of blocking as well, and he'll get front foot ball for sure. The one that we did have as a lookalike, and this is a bit niche, was Danny Kerr. Obviously, you probably wouldn't pick him for his size or his stature in the NFL, but he has, since he's grown this moustache, we don't know how long it's going to stay for. He's copped a few comparisons to Gardner Minshew from Jacksonville. He's a quarterback. Obviously, we'll flash a little image up on the screen for those of you watching on YouTube. Those of you that are on the audio, you'd have to do a little Google of him. But it's not a bad little comparison actually. It's quite close, to be fair.
Yeah, I've seen it. I'm sure there'll be people listening to this that have no idea who he is as well. I don't know either. But it is uncanny, and I have to say, I think DC should keep that Tash. It seems to bring a different level to his game. If he twirls the end a little bit as well, I think he'll be unstoppable.
Yeah, I agree. It adds a touch of flair to his game. So one thing that I was trying to sort of pick with this is I was trying to get guys off both sides of the ball. Obviously, in the NFL, we've got offense and defense, and my network of consultants has come through with a quite good shout actually, and one of them basically noticed the physical stature of Wilco Lowe as a guard. He's going to give you some pretty good protection for the quarterback. I can't see many offensive linemen rushing past him and getting to the quarterback, whoever that may be. I don't know if we've got Brady or Mahomes on our side of the ball, but Wilco Lowe is enormous through the quads and big up in the shoulders. It's going to be pretty difficult to get past him and get any rushing pressure on him.
He's going to play that sumo role, isn't he? Where he just takes a squat and you've got to get past him. Like it reminds me of Takeshi's Castle. Road comparison. So I've also had a stab, and my knowledge is limited. So I've tried to pick out the attributes in a rugby player which I think apply to American football. So I'll just take you through some of my lists. The positions in American football I'm going to get totally wrong, so I'm ready for you to laugh at me, Mike.
Here we go. Yeah.
But, Marchant is very agile, good turn of pace. So I'd obviously have him in the attacking team, and I don't know if wide receiver is the best position for him, but he can take a high ball. Yeah,
no, it's not a bad shout. If I was going to pick a wide receiver from Quins, who would I pick? I'm not sure. Marchant probably be up there. Back in the day, I think an Ugo Monye type would have been a good receiver.
Wheels,
just
wheels,
strong, good separation, good hands. But no, Marchant's up there. Marchant's. I'm going on comparisons here. Those you're going to have to do do a bit of research. Those of you that are lacking in NFL knowledge, but Stephon Diggs from the Buffalo Bills is a bit of a Joe Marchant type physically. I think that's not a bad comparison. Not bad. What else have you got? I'll see if I can pick you up on any wrongdoings here.
Yeah, you're gonna like this one. So I've called them blockers, so they're in my defense team. I don't know if blockers is the correct term, but it sounds similar to the role you were just describing for Wilco Lowe. But I've got our guy Matt Simons in there, just a physical presence, good balance, reasonably agile for a big man. I think he'd do a good job at protecting your QB.
He's a bit tall for a lineman, Simmons, but.
Is he?
Yeah, they're usually sort of smaller, sort of stockier types. Not to say they're not tall, but maybe a little bit top heavy. They need a bit more power through the quads and.
What about Chisholm? James Chisholm.
Yeah, not a bad shout. Chisholm would be like a sort of reasonable sort of outside lineman, bit quicker, bit handsier, bit more of a turn of pace. But no, yeah, Chisholm's not a bad shout. The one that I really liked, that I'll put my own name on, was Andre Esterhazen. Obviously, this weekend, those that will know, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Will's team, his adopted team, the Kansas City Chiefs, in the Super Bowl, and they've got Tampa have got arguably the greatest tight end of all time in Rob Gronkowski, formerly of the Patriots, and the current, by a margin, actually, the best tight end in the NFL in Travis Kelce of the Chiefs, and similar-ish body types to Esterhazen, and both sort of 6'1", 6'2", meaty guys, but also quick, good hands, receiving the ball. I think Andre would go quite well there. And
then the last man I've got on my list is Marcus Smith, naturally, as the role of, not sure if it's kicker or punter or whether they're actually different positions, but after last week against Wasps, he showed he can place kick and also kick pretty well from hand, so I'm sure he'd do a job at both.
Yeah, place kicking, definitely. I think Marcus is intelligent enough to run a few trick plays as well. Snapping the ball to him and him actually picking up and throwing it. I think he'd be quite
hell of a goose step.
Yeah,
the goose step will get him over.
Yeah, agreed. No, he's definitely got a little hitch kick in him. The other one, I think, punter would be more sort of Mike Brown, big long spirals, dropping the ball deep into the opposition territory. But actually, for Brown, I had him as a punt returner. So, off fourth down, they're not going anywhere out of field goal range. You're kicking it long to Brownie in the backfield, and he's got 40 yards to run at people and pick a gap with blockers in front of him. I think he'd be quite good at that. Obviously, going back to probably the peak of his international career when he was picking the ball up on the 22 and running at teams and 40, 50-yard carries. I think that he'd be pretty adept as a punt returner. But no, I think some reasonable shouts in there. Obviously, we talk about the likes of Christian Wade and a couple more niche names, those of Jared Hayne and Valentine Holmes, who are big NRL players in rugby league in Australia. They both tried with varying degrees of success. Difficult to transfer into the NFL and break that scene, but I reckon we'll bit of training. I reckon some of our boys would line up pretty well. I reckon.
Yeah, Big Paul can take him under his wing whilst at Quins and give him a few tips and tricks. But I'll very much be a sofa fan this weekend. I'm going to do an American night with my flatmates, get the burgers and the fries in and a few buds and stay up for it. So, but that's very much the role we're playing at the minute, isn't it? Sofa fans. That actually leads me on to the Quins Foundation at the minute. So later on in this month, the Quins Foundation between the 26th of Feb and 12th of March are doing something called the Full House Challenge, which is where we're going to aim to get a squat for each seat at the Twickenham Stoop. So what we'll be doing during this time is myself and Mike will be taking a few squats out on the old podcast episode.
I was hoping actually just to do the one singular squat for my seat in the south stand, but I think that's a bit out of the spirit. So I'll certainly contribute to a few more. I'll certainly contribute to a few more. But yeah, no, just touch on the foundation. The Quins Foundation was established in 2015. The Harlequins Foundation is the embodiment of the club's belief to put our communities at the heart of everything we do. Obviously, it's massively important for the club. They've got a big sustainable goal as well. They're talking about trying to impact 1 million lives by the year 2030. I think it's a huge something they do is massively important, and especially in the likes of sustainable development through the club and entrepreneurialism and skill development, talking about education and poor health and society stuff. It's some of the work they're doing is pretty cool. So if we can do a few squats live on our podcast just to raise awareness and get behind the project, then it's something we should definitely be doing, mate, for sure.
Yeah, and that education point's a good one because there's an online resource called Quins Edu, which is referring to education there. And it's an online resource which is very, very useful if you're homeschooling at the minute or if you're a teacher and you want to incorporate sport in a more natural way within the parameters of what we've got at the minute with lockdown restrictions. So that's definitely worth looking at. And a big part of that actually is you can design your own Quins concept kit, which particularly caught my attention. That's something I challenge you to, Mike. I think me and you should go head to head in home and away kits and let the people decide what's the best. And then,
I think my art and drawing skills are certainly worse than my singing. I might have to palm that off to a couple of art students at school and see if I can cheat and get some better designs out there. But no, definitely saying we'll jump on board with.
You're a teacher, aren't you? That'll be a good resource for you. But no, I'm laying down a challenge to you, mate. It's me and you now.
I tried to avoid an art GCSE because of the fact that I simply cannot draw. So that'll be a good laugh either way.
I mean, if this podcast is anything to go by, our fashion's not much better either, is it? Our fashion, our singing, and our art.
I know, our fashion's all right. You're very topical in your fashion. You're a well-dressed man. I'm a little bit more of a slob. I spend my life in P-kit, but no, for sure. I mean, that's definitely something we can get behind. Well, mate, I think that brings us to a sort of fairly natural stopping point. Obviously, we've got a big weekend of sport, Six Nations, Super Bowl, but most importantly, Quins away at the Rec on Saturday. So I think that leaves it there for us, mate. Looking forward to another chat and plug the socials at Harlequins Pod on Twitter. Get in touch with anything you want to say to us. And tune in next time. Will, I'll catch you soon, mate.
See you soon. Come on, you Quins.